4-2, exponents. All right, our objective today is to solve expressions involving exponents. Here we have a number, and what that basically means is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Multiply that all out, you get 81. Now the little number raised up, that's up high, that's called the exponent. The number that's down at the bottom, that's known as the base. I always think of the base as being the basement, and if you know about houses with basements, the basement's at the bottom of the house, and the base is at the bottom of the number. You can read this as 3 to the 4th power. So what I want you to do now is rewrite each of these powers as repeated multiplication and evaluate. Remember, evaluate just is a fancy word for solving the problem. So multiply them out. Go ahead, pause the video and attempt to do these 4. If you get stuck, go ahead and play and I'll come back and help you. Alright, so for number 1, you should have written 5 times 5, and that's not 10. Now, that's a common mistake. It means 5 times 5, which is 25. 2 to the 4th power is not 8. It means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. If you multiply all that out, you get 16. 10 to the 3rd means 10 times 10 times 10. Multiply that out, you get 1,000. A nice little trick for that, if you have 10 to the 3rd power, it's a 1 with that many zeros. Or 10 to any power is a 1 with that many zeros. 12 to the 2nd's not 24, it's 12 times 12, which is 144. So please remember, you're multiplying, and you're not multiplying those two numbers together. The little number tells you how many of the big number you have. Very important for exponents, and it's a common mistake. People mess up on it all the time. So let's practice here. So we have 7 to the 2nd power. You can also, sometimes you'll hear this as 7 squared, and you'll hear me say this all the time. So if you'll hear me say 7 to the 2nd power or 7 squared, you need to know that just means 7 times 7. Next, we have 5 to the 3rd power. And does anyone know how you could say this? Another way of saying this. If you knew 5 cubed, good for you. And that just means 5 times 5 times 5. Next, we have 9 to the 4th power, which means 9 times 9 times 9 times 9. And 2 to the 5th power is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Now, sometimes you might hear me say 2 to the 5th or 9 to the 4th. I might not throw in that power, and that's fine. You don't have to say the word power, especially when you're in math class. You should kind of know that's what we're talking about. Okay, now, for this one, it's a little bit different. Not a lot, but a little bit. This is negative 8 to the 2nd power, which means, or you can say negative 8 squared, which means negative 8 times negative 8. Now, if I have this is something different. This is the opposite of 8 to the 2nd power, or the opposite of 8 squared. So that would be 8 times 8, then take the opposite of that. You're going to get two very different answers. In the first one, you're going to get a positive 64. And on the second one, you're going to get a negative 64. So it's really important that you know that exponents only go with the symbol or constant or variable that they're next to. So if you look at the first one where it's negative 8 in parentheses, that whole term is to the 2nd power because the 2 is next to the parentheses, so everything inside of that parenthesis is to the 2nd power. In the second one, where we have the opposite of 8 to the 2nd power, the 2 is only next to the 8. It's not next to the negative. It's a really important thing that you need to remember. So really work on remembering that exponents only go with what they're next to. All right, so what I would like you to do now is we're going to evaluate some expressions. So we're going to plug in the number for the variable and then solve it. This is where you need to remember your order of operations. You need to remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, or PEMDAS, but that's what you need to be using today. So your first step when you're substituting in is change that letter P for a 7. So you have the opposite of 2 times 7 to the second power. So using please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, I look for P, which is parentheses. I've got those, and I'm going to do what's inside of it. In this case, there's only one thing. It's 2 times 7, so that would be 14. Next, I'm going to do my exponents. So 14 times 14 is going to be 196. I then do the opposite of that, which gives me a negative 196. I'd like you to try this one, number 2, on your own, and then come back and see what you got. Okay, so first thing we do is we substitute in 11 for E. So we have 11 minus 2, that quantity to the third power. I want you to write these out. Don't just write the answer. You need to write it out step by step, especially in your homework. So write the problems out. Show your work. Okay, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. We've got parentheses, so 11 minus 2 is 9. 9 to the third power. Now, if you're doing this at home, I don't mind if you use a calculator because you're probably not going to be able to do this in your head. It might be a little bit tough. But basically, we have 9 to the third power, so 9 times 9 is 81, times 9 is 729. Is that what you got? I hope so. If not, then you need to ask questions. Number 3, attempt to solve this problem, showing your work using order of operations. Pause the video, attempt it, and then let's see if we get the same answer. Okay, so we're going to plug in -4 for x. Now, it's very important that we plug in that whole -4 is going to be in the parentheses because that whole thing is the x. So if you didn't do that, that might be the first place that you made a mistake. So order of operations, there are parentheses in here, but there's nothing to do inside of them. They're just plain old -4s. So then we're going to go to exponents. We've got exponents, so we're going to do -4 to the second power is going to be a positive 16. Excuse me. Next, we're looking for division or multiplication. We've got some multiplication, so we're going to multiply 3 times -4. That's going to be -12. We have some adding and subtracting, whichever comes first. So that would be 4 minus 7. Now, that's a subtraction problem. The first number is smaller than the second, so I would change the sign to addition, take the opposite of the second number. I have more negatives, so that's going to give me a -3. Next, I want you to write this expression using exponents. So we're basically going to make it a little easier to say. Instead of saying k times k times k times k times k, how could we write it using exponents? Well, start with your base. What you see is your base. So I see a k repeated. How many k's do I see? That's the exponent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have k to the 5th power. There's our answer. Number 5. Again, now we've got different things all kind of jumbled up. So in your head, how do you think we could write this? Or if you're pretty confident, go ahead and write it out. Start with the numbers. We always want the numbers first when we're combining things. So we're going to put the 7 first. And then I like to go in alphabetical order. It makes it easier for people to kind of follow along. So I've got A's. How many A's do I have? 2. So it's a to the 2nd power, or a squared. What else do I have? I've got B's. How many B's? 3. So we would say this as 7a squared b cubed, or 7a to the 2nd power, b to the 3rd power, or some combination thereof. That's the answer. That's all we can do. Would you try number 6 on your own? Or at least in your head, what do you think we're going to start with? Now we want to write this using exponents. So, like I told you in the last problem, we got 3 here and a 3 here. So we're going to write that as -3. Notice I put it in parentheses because I want the whole thing to be to the 2nd power. And then I'm going in alphabetical order, so I've got a D here, a D here. So D to the second power. And then 1, 2, 3 E's, E cubed, or E to the third. Now, honestly, normally, if I was writing this, I probably wouldn't write it as -3 to the second power. I just would probably put a +9, because -3 times -3 is 9. But they are asking us to write it using exponents. So we're going to follow their directions and be good little boys and girls and do exactly what the instructions say. All right. Now we're going to simplify. Simplify means getting it down to the basics. So, but before we start, I want you to take a look. We have 2 to the 8th power and 8 to the second power. Are those going to come out to the same answer? They've got the same numbers. So I just want to, or same digits. I kind of want you to think about that, and let's see if it does. So 2 to the 8th power means 2 times 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 2. This is the way I would do it. You can do it differently. I would just be doing my 2's. I got a 4. I got another set of 2's. That gives me another 4. Another set of 2's gives me another 4. Another set of 2's gives me another 4. And then I'd do those two. I get 16 and 16. 16 times 16 is 256. Again, I'm not going to go crazy if you use a calculator on this. And then 8 to the second power, you need a calculator on this. 8 times 8 is 64. So you can see that even though we had the same digits, because they were in different positions, we ended up with very different numbers. So it does matter where you put things. Would you try solving this using order of operations? And meaning using please excuse my dear Aunt Sally or PEMDAS. I'm not going to go crazy if you use a calculator on this, but you need to show the steps. What I mean by that is write it out. What did you get each time? So please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I'm going to do parentheses. So 17 minus 3. Since I had exponents, I did that first. So 4 to the second is 16. 3 to the second is 9. I want you to show that out, even if you did it using a calculator. Then I do my subtraction. I get 14 and I get 7. 14 to the second power. If you want to use a calculator, this is a great spot to use it, but you're showing the steps. You're going to write out 196 divided by 7, which gives me 28. Would you try this problem on your own, showing your steps, showing the process? You don't need to show the arithmetic. You can use a calculator if you want, but show the steps. What did you do? So what you should have done is done the exponents first. Now where some people I bet messed up is they did -6 times -6. It should just be 6 times 6 because the 2 is only next to the 6, not the negative. To include the negative, it would have to have been in the parentheses. So that's going to be -36 plus 2 times 3 to the second. I'm going to do that 3 to the second and get 9. Order of operations, got to do the 2 times 9 next, is 18. Now I've got 36 negatives, 18 positives. Signs are different, so I'm going to subtract. What do I have more of? Hopefully you're thinking negatives. And I get -18 for an answer. Okay, that's it for today. Make sure you've got all your notes written down. If you have any questions, write those down so that you're ready to ask them when you come back. Thank you. Bye.